Hello and a warm welcome to our webinar today. Over the next 30 minutes, we would like to show you how you can archive your data in a future-proof manner when switching to SAP S/4HANA without additional projects and with cost savings up to 50%. Alexander Max will talk about how documents and data can be migrated efficiently, sustainably, and in a compliance with legal requirements without an additional large-scale project. Alexander is 34 years old and has been working in the SAP field for the last 10 years now, and joined KGS in December 2 years ago. He is an enthusiastic CrossFit and high rocks athlete, and in this webinar, he shares his experience for various S/4HANA projects. My name is Katharina Gerber. I'm part of the marketing team, and I'm leading you through this session today. But first of all, we have a few things to take care of. You can answer questions during the whole webinar. And for this, you can use the chat tool in the question tool in the chat panel. This webinar will be recorded the whole time, so that we can send you the recording afterwards. And after the session or after from Alex, it's enough time to answer your questions from the chat. Before Alex gets started in the topic, in today's topic, we have prepared a survey. And now I will display this survey. And the question for this survey is, what stage is your company currently at regard to S/4HANA? And the answers are, we are planning the switch launch within the next 12 months. The S/4HANA project is already underway. We are currently in the testing or migration phase. We are already live on S/4HANA or no concrete plans at present. And now you can select the current answer for you and click on this answer. So I will wait a few more seconds so that all of you have the chance to select one of these answers. Okay, so a couple of more seconds. Okay, I will close the survey, and now we can see the results. And this is, hang on. So we have 8%, we are planning the switch. 23%, the SAP project is already underway. 15%, we are currently in the testing or migration phase. 46%, we are already live on S/4HANA. And 8%, no plans at present. That's very interesting. Thank you very much to answer these questions. And yeah, now I'm looking forward to this session. And I give to you, Alex, and have fun.
Thank you, Katharina, from my side, and very warm welcome too. I'm happy to present you the very important and interesting topic, archiving and S/4HANA. And I took a small agenda with me. Of course, first of all, several people know maybe KGS, but several not, so I will introduce shortly KGS, the company KGS. Then we are talking about the archiving topic, and as for archiving topic, of course, I have a small business case with me with one of our customers. We prepared them for S/4HANA because of our SAP archiving project. At the end of the agenda, we have a Q&A session. Katharina mentioned it before. You can ask your questions in the chat, write it directly. Of course, we will answer it at the end of the session, but before you forget it, write it in the chat. I will try to answer it at the end of the session. If I'm not able to do this, please, we will send the answer after the presentation via mail. And please, if you will find a question very interesting for you too, that I read it in the chat, I will read in the chat, then please take a note in the chat, then we'll send you the answer, of course, to via mail. And yeah, why is this topic so important for you, for us? Many companies are wondering what to do about archiving, especially when it comes to an S4 transformation. Either they are archive using SAP Content Server and SAP, which is very expensive in S4 HANA when they are archived in the SAP environment, of course, or they use an ECM system which can be a major project and can be also, or is mostly, very expensive. Or third point, of course, can be companies have nothing in use, but it's comparing to the GDPR rules can be very expensive when you think about that you have a high level punishment when you are working against compliance rules. A small introduction, as I mentioned before. Yeah, KGS, we are over 25 years on the market. We don't see ourselves as a market leader when it comes to ECM because we are operating in a niche market for archiving. We're specialized in archiving. And that is exactly what our customers are paying for. We have around 500 customers, every sizes. We have different blue chip customers, of course, and with BMW, Lufthansa, we have Dow Chemicals, for example. So we are working around the world with our company. We have 50 employees, but because of our stable solution and of our partners, we are able to handle so many customers in such a good way. Yeah, the most customers want to simplify their archiving structure, their archiving and IT landscape, and in the best case, or mostly, of course, they want to have a high cost saving. And yeah, because of our licensing model, you only have to pay what you have real stored in your storage. In the most cases, of course, they have a very, very high cost saving factor, up to 50% comparing to their existing ECM solution. For example, first of all, we were one of the first vendors that were certified, for example, for this DMI's interface. So we always want to be a pioneer and technical leader when it comes to SAP archiving. I mentioned it before, many companies want to have a high cost reduction, high cost saving, and these are, for special points. What does TIA mean? TIA mean that's our archiving system, the intelligent archive. We have, I mentioned before, cost reduction up to 50% of the annual cost. The unique point is we are archiving as a middleware. So the advantages, because we have a middleware, we are delivering a middleware, I will tell you later. And we were the world first certified CMI's archive. And to think about the sizes we are archiving, we have more than 7 billion archive documents. We have customers that have, for example, around 700 terabytes up to 1 petabyte in their archive system in our content server. But we have much more smaller customers, for example, too, with 50 gigabytes or 100 gigabytes in their content server. And regarding to our licensing model, this is all possible. You only have to pay what you have in your storage. So if you don't have so much data, documents, attachments in your storage, of course, the price is a bit smaller, and we don't have a vendor login or user numbers and so on. So it's very easy. We try always to simplify the IT landscape and, of course, the business landscape too. And today, there are several points on the slide. When our companies are thinking about a new archiving system, for example, they are now unhappy with their ECM or DMS. Do they need more interfaces? Do they need to optimize security and compliance? Are they going to the private cloud, public cloud, and so on? And we are talking about these 2 points the company is in process of S/4HANA transformations, is on S/4HANA, and of course wants to save costs. I do think that's always a very important topic, and especially in these times, many companies want to have a high cost saving. And when we are talking about archiving don't have to be the sexiest solution in the world. Archiving should be audit proof, and that's the point why you have to, for this service, you should pay, and only for this. The flexible architecture, I mentioned before, we are delivering in middleware. So why this is a big advantage, why this is very important when it comes to S/4HANA. So when it comes for S/4HANA, you can have special requirements. We are talking later in the next slides about the requirements, but before that, especially to explain why a middleware is a big advantage comparing to other solutions. And we have a direct connection to the leading application to SAP. So we only delivering what SAP don't have. So we have a direct connection to the roles and rights infrastructure of SAP by itself. So we don't have to deliver extra databases for such things, for example. So the migration, the implementation is much more faster, of course. And you see this in the slides. We are able to archive via Archive Link when you are on-prem or in the private cloud. And we are able to archive via in the public cloud. For example, when you want to, or you have your SAP S4 systems in the HANA cloud, in the public cloud of SAP, then it's only possible to archive via CMIS anymore. It's not, CMIS replaced completely Archive Link in the public cloud, but on the private cloud, on on-prem, of course, is Archive Link possible. With this solution, you can archive via Archive Link and via CMIS, and you can connect via ILMM. And you see this here, you can work on-prem, it's completely flexible, or you can work on the private cloud or in the public cloud. Why this is important, SAP RISE has different requirements, has different possibilities, so you don't have to go to the public cloud. It's of course able to have your subsystems in your own environment or in the private cloud, and so you can archive via Archive Link. But if you don't want to touch every 5 years your archiving system again and again, because then maybe in 10 years it's only possible to go to the public cloud and so on, you don't know the plans of mostly of your high-level management, then you should be prepared and you should have a solution that can handle all of these possibilities. And with this middleware, it's possible. You can archive in a public cloud, private cloud, or on-prem. So it doesn't matter how the plans for the future are. You don't have to switch your archiving system. You don't have to switch your archive system again and again. And that's why our customers are staying for such a long time with us. So you see here different possibilities, different parts of TIA, of our archiving environment, I would say. Here you see the content server, that's the archiving system. These are the topics. We're not talking about all of these topics. We're only talking about our content server. That's our archiving system. And the migration tool, of course, this is very important, especially while the S/4HANA transformation or wider transformation, nobody wants to have a parallel high-level project where you have to take such a big care about it. And with the migration tool that automates all of the migration process, you have to push one button and then it's all working in the background. In best cases, your end users don't see that there's something happening in the background. Then it's of course the best case to use such a tool, and we're delivering our own tool for that. And of course, the SADOC could be very interesting for today's topic. Why most of the companies have third-party systems in use, for example, in the insurance companies or something like that, retail companies, some retail companies too, they have third-party systems in use and they want to archive, to store the documents, attachments, and data in SAP, in their own content server. And for that, we have an add-on with an own interface, for example, with an own front end. And so we can handle, I do think, most of the archiving solutions, possibilities you need. One point, what is a big advantage, what's very important for when you are working in SAP or with the SAP front end, you don't have to learn to train on front end because of our direct connection to the leading application to SAP. We are using the most parts of SAP, but we are archiving outside of SAP. So the storage is outside of SAP, so you save HANA costs. You don't have to pay the HANA in-memory storage. And so I do think, but later in the next slides, I will tell you a bit more about several requirements of S4HANA. And I do think now it's a good time to switch to S4HANA switch. You see this here, there are different requirements. There's an ECM. I mentioned it at the beginning of the presentation. In one point, for example, you have an ECM system in use. It's very huge, and several times you have it, for example, around 10, 15 years. You never touched it really in the past. And now you have your S4HANA project, and now you have to touch it, of course, because for example, you have all data, all attachments. You are not sure if you want to take it with you to S4. Then you are thinking about the strategy. Do you want to archive in SAP, for example, when you have now your SAP content server in use? And of course, it's in SAP. Of course, it's with low costs. But now, when you want to archive in the SAP environment, there are high costs because of the memory costs of HANA and so on. So you need to think about your strategy, and I mentioned it before. And when you have a huge landscape because of your ECM system, you have a huge parallel project while the S4 transformation with testing and so on and so on. And that's complex and maintenance intensive. Of course, the cost intensive database, the cost intensive HANA database is an very important requirement, very important topic for most of our customers or for the most companies here. And the cost reduction and efficiency improvement, should every IT department of the company think about it. And the question is always, are you managing the cost of the SAP S4HANA in-memory database efficiently? An archiving solution can significantly reduce costs by storing the data outside the expensive SAP infrastructure. And so a well thought out archiving strategy eases the load on your SAP HANA environment and reduce storage requirements. And so an efficiency archiving system also enhances performance and sustainably lowers operational costs. Very important point to think about it. Of course, retention times, retention periods. You have one point, you have, for example, data attachments with retention times around 6 years, 7 years plus, for example, and now there are now 8 years on the storage. So you don't have to take all of this data, all of these attachments with you. So review data quality and relevance is important. Which data actually needs to be migrated? Can irrelevant data be offloaded or deleted to reduce the burden in your system? And an intelligence archiving solution provide, like our tier, for example, provide automated tools to efficiently manage irrelevant data. So one point on top, how we can save HANA costs, how we can save memory costs, one of these points too. Not only, okay, we are implementing a new solution, it's very important to see, okay, which data attachments, documents do I have to take with me in this project. And heterogeneous landscape, it's always not so easy to handle than an homogeneous landscape. We have companies, we have customers that before they came to us several ECM systems and SAP content server in their company, especially when these are a bit bigger companies. Then they have several vendors in, so they have several contracts, several support teams, and so on, several requirements to their people, to their IT department, and it's always good to think about to simplify the existing IT landscape and to make it more homogeneous. This is a great opportunity to implement new use cases supported by an optimized archiving solution. And not only does this facilitate the transition, but it also increases efficiency. Security and compliance, very, very important. We talked about, mentioned it several minutes before. And there can be a high punishment. When I'm right, I'm not sure when I'm right, there's about 1 up to 4% of the annual turnover of a company. So for example, if you have 100 million, or then it's 1 million and so on. So you can calculate it by yourself. So it's always helpful to see, okay, good, we need to work compliance. We need to work regarding compliance and GDPR rules. We have to think about it, and it's always important to see, okay, does your archiving comply with current GDPR requirements? And we have examples, for example, that the company, for example, didn't have the person archiving system in use. They copy and paste, for example, contracts, data to a file system. They didn't have access controls and so on. But you need an access control, you need an archiving system, and you have to ensure your solution meets legal requirements or data protection and archiving. So very important, but not every company does such topics. One requirement on top is, of course, the cloud compatibility and scalability. Why is this very important? I mentioned it before. We have now big moving on the market, high moving on the market. And the question is always, are your archiving solutions already cloud orientated? So cloud and hybrid archiving solutions provide the flexibility and scalability that companies need for the future. Why is this important? We have RISE, we have now S4, we have hyperscaler, AWS, Azure, for example, and it's always helpful to think about it. Okay, do we want to have the S4 system, for example, in the cloud, in the private cloud, in the public cloud, or on-prem? It's always the question many companies are asking, and you need a solution that covers all of these strategies. And of course, now when you see the market, the strategy is from SAP to go to the cloud, and so you should have a solution that is cloud native, can handle the cloud. Of course, it's easy for patches, it's easy to upgrade and so on. So the handling is much more easier with Drotzma, and you can simplify the handling, simplify the landscape, and so on. And of course, a very important topic is CMIS. When it comes to the public cloud, you need to switch the interface from Archive Link. Not every solution can handle CMIS or is able to archive via CMIS. And latest, when you have to switch to the new interface, then of course you should see, okay, should you change your archiving solution, or should you think about to switch? So because of the time, I will, we talked most of these points. I covered it in the slide before. Yeah, we see this here. What is very important, we talked about reduced infrastructure and complexity, no parallel project to the S4 transformation. This is many IT departments and companies are scared about a high-level project while the S4 transformation is ongoing, or they don't see, okay, we have now a high and big project, we don't want, why should we start a new project? It is not easier to stay with our old solution. Now, mostly it's not. You have to touch your old solution when you go to S4. You have to touch your archive system. You have to test, you have to develop, or something like that. So it's always now a good point to check the market to see, okay, maybe is there a provider, a vendor, or a solution that covers our requirements a bit better than the existing topic. Cost reduction, always a good point, not only for the licensing topic. It's of course important to see, okay, how many people do I need to handle the solution? What's about the ongoing costs when we bought the solution? What's it with the future cost, and so on. And with the tier, because of the simplified landscape, because of that we only delivering, you only have to pay for that, for example, what SAP don't have. So we only delivering what SAP don't have, so you don't have to pay double times for functionalities, for access, for roles and rights infrastructure, for example, because SAP has such functionalities, and you only need an audit process, archiving process in the background, and that's what TIA is delivering. Of course, business technology platform on top, it's very important. We are able, for example, to connect via BTP, and it's always a requirement, especially when it comes to S4 transformation. I mentioned it before. Here you see why our solution is a bit much more leaner than, for example, existing ECM system. When you have the SAP content server in use, they are talking about cost savings. Okay, I mentioned it before, it's always cheaper to archive outside of SAP, but they don't want to have an ECM system because it's a high cost saving factor 2, and high cost factor 2, not cost saving factor, and high cost factor 2. And you see here the differences, because we are only delivering what SAP don't have. We have a direct connection to roles and rights infrastructures. SAP, we are using the SAP front end, for example, for our archiving process, so we don't have to deliver extra databases and so on and so on. So the landscape is of course much more leaner than before. And if you have the SAP content server use, you don't have to be scared to that you put a huge solution in your landscape, because it's lean, it's easy to handle, and you don't have a big effort to use the solution. The migration tool, it's always very important for the migration. It's always very important while the S/4HANA process is ongoing, because I mentioned it before, nobody wants to have a big, huge parallel project. They have to archive, they have to touch the existing archiving system, and it's the best way to say, okay, when the end users are shouldn't see, okay, there is a process in the background ongoing, and with the migration tool, this is very helpful to see, okay, you have directly access to the source archiving system and to the source content server. Parallel, you can archive to the target content server. So nobody, in the best case, the end users will not see that there's a migration process ongoing because of our proxy server functionality. I took then small business case with me. So because of the time, I will talk only about this slide. This is very important to take, that you see, okay, you don't have to be scared when you plan an archiving project in preparation for the S4 transformation, or while the S4 transformation is ongoing. So you see this at the example of Karcher, for example. It was not the biggest project we had in the past, but it was about 16 terabytes from an ECM system. We migrated to an hyperscaler AWS, around 100 content repositories, and 10 SAP productive systems we connected to our content server. For this project, we needed 2 employees of Karcher, so not full-time, and only 1 consultant from our side, and this not full-time too. We calculated around, it was about 10 or 15 service days, for example, and one important and core requirement was no interruption of service through proxy, and we handled this with 3 people. Yes. So this is around the business case, but it's similar. We talked about the slides before. For the S4HANA transformation requirements, they had the same and similar requirements. I talked several slides before, and we covered this with our project in a very fast time. Now we are at the end of the presentation. We have now our Q&A session. I hope, Katharina, maybe several questions came up, and now you have some minutes left that you can hear the answers. If not, we will send you the answers, of course, via mail. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Alex, to introduce you to the future-proof archiving while switching to S4HANA. And yeah, now you have time to put your questions in the chat if you have any questions so that we can answer. And first question I received is, maybe can you repeat how can archiving be integrated into existing S4HANA project without creating additional work?
Oh, that's an questions. I do think that's always depending how is your S4 transformation ongoing. The best way is, of course, to do this before you start with the S4 transformation, because if you check your archiving system, if you, I mentioned in several slides before, if you check, okay, which data, which documents and attachments do we have to take with us, so the reduction of the archiving system before the S4 transformation starts is always helpful. And of course, to archive from your productive system, okay, you don't have to take all of your documents, all of your attachments, all of your data with you from a productive system. You can put it outside to SAP, and so you don't have to put it in your S4 system too. So the migration is, of course, of the S4 transformation can be much more faster when you do the archiving before the migration starts or while the S4 transformation starts. And so it's not a parallel project, it's one project and can make your S4 transformation much more faster than would be without an archiving topic or without an archiving project.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Then we have another question. Can you say some words about a migration from S4HANA on-prem to S4HANA public cloud? We use KGS TIA as archive.
Yeah, we do have to do a migration. So when you're using now our TIA content server on-prem, and now you want to go to the public cloud, we do have to do a remigration because CMIS has their own structure. It's working with metadata and so on, but it's for us a normal archiving project. We did it in the past with several customers, and it's always possible. It's of course always faster, and because we know our content server and we know how our content server is working via CMIS. So maybe you should write in the chat or ask us which bit more deeper which requirements you have. But when the switch is possible, and we did it in the past, and so yeah, I'm not sure how big your existing archiving system is, but yeah, you can use our tier core via CMS, of course, yeah, and we can do the migration from our old content server to the CMS too. Mm-hmm. But I do think, I'm not sure, I don't know your landscape, but I think that we have to migrate, yeah.
Okay, so if there are more questions, please write in the chat. And yeah, while I would like to take the opportunity to invite you to visit us at the UKZUK Connect annual conference in Birmingham. So we are joining this event from the 30th of November to the 2nd December, and you can find us at the stand S13. And yeah, we would like to introduce you and looking forward to meet you there for maybe a little chat.
Yes, you can meet us in person, and if there will come up more questions, you have our contact dates. please ask. It's always good.
So there's another question. We're already using KGS TIA on ERP 6.0. We are currently updating to TIA Core. Are there any specific requirements for switching to S4HANA?
You are switching out to TIA Core and still on ECC 6, or is this the question? And now what's the special requirements are when you're going to S4HANA?
Mm-hmm.
It's
yes.
depending, of course, where you want to have your S4 system. Do you want to stay still on-prem, or do you want to go to the private cloud or public cloud? It's always depending on these questions. And then we have, for example, the requirements, but we have, when you are our customer, then we have our customer tool portal. And then there is a link with the special requirements, and it's answer the most of your questions. And if not, of course, when you know, okay, which way you want to go in S4, do you want to stay on-prem still, or on private cloud or public cloud? I can answer your the question, but depending on these questions, then yeah, I can give you the.
It's the addition. Yes, it's on-prem.
Didn't hear you from. It was the sound broke up.
Yes, yes, on-prem was one additional.
I do think TIA Core should handle this with not a big effort. I'm not sure if we have to adjust something, but when you're now on TIA Core is of course able to connect or to archive with S4 without big adjustment for S4HANA. But I can ask after the presentation one of our consultants, and then I can answer the question in the best way after a mail. But I do not think that there's a big adjustment needed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And we have another question. Have you a solution to save data outside and to be retired SAP system to read data in the years afterwards?
So, and to retire and complete the SAP system, or I'm not sure if I understood the question the right way. So we don't retire completely SAP systems. We of course, when you have legacy systems and so on, we can archive, and then you have normal access there. But we don't retire completely SAP systems.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully this answer will be fine for you. All right, thank you very much for all these questions and for your interest on today's topic. And as if there are no more questions, then pleasant rest of your day. And we hope to see you on the UKIZUK Connect in Birmingham. And thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Bye, thank you. Thank you for your attention, bye.